You are listening to the Empowered Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monica Froese, a mom of two and your secret weapon to creating a six-figure digital product business. I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women make $100,000 a year. That's right, $100 million towards financial independence for women. As an online business expert, I am teaching you everything I know right here week after week, so you can join us on the journey to $100 million. Sound good? Then let's jump in. There's always that moment when you remember where you were when something big happened in your life. And my guest today is part of that moment for me, and she didn't even know it. So today I'm talking to Claire Pelletreau, and she is the host of an amazing podcast called the Get Paid Podcast, where she asks really tough questions out of entrepreneurs, really peeling back the onion on things that we hear in the industry that aren't always true. Like, was your launch truly a six-figure launch? And she asks the hard questions. And back in 2015, I remember driving to my first mom conference by myself and binging her podcast. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to get on her podcast. And then about 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to meet her, and she invited me on her podcast. So it felt like this full circle. And now I have a podcast, and I'm inviting her on. And this is just such a great episode because Claire is an amazing person who has a lot of knowledge. Her expertise is actually in Facebook ads. So Claire is a Facebook and Instagram ad expert and conversion optimization expert. Her mission is for you to actually see a return on the money that you're putting into the Zuckerberg machine without the expensive help of an outside ad consultant. Fortunately, Claire's ad trainings are famous around the interwebs for being ridiculously easy to understand and then implement. Claire also loves talking about money, which includes profit loss and the whole shebang. She asks her guests how much they charge and how much they earn on her show, the Get Paid Podcast. So let's turn the tables now and interview Claire. Claire, welcome to the Empowered Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Monica. I'm excited.
I am very excited. And after you answer my first question, I'm going to tell everyone why I'm excited that you're on the podcast. Okay. But we always get started with explaining your entrepreneurial journey, basically like why you're an entrepreneur, how it started, and then what you're working on today.
Okay. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. Growing up, I figured I'd be a social worker, a teacher, maybe a lawyer, something like that. Like every single other person in my very extended family. But I found myself teaching English in Argentina, to escape the real world. And I met the man who would eventually be my husband. And he helped me transition from running around the city, teaching English classes all over the place, making, okay money, to freelancing and then working for his startup. So I entered the startup scene. That's how I learned about Facebook ads and Google Analytics and more about blogging. But then when we realized that we wanted to stay together and therefore we couldn't work together, I started looking for a full-time job. But we were in Chile, and then we were about to go to Spain with his work, that I had to get something online. I had to find some kind of remote job. And that's where I landed at LKR Social Media, which eventually pivoted to the social media scheduling tool, Meet Edgar. So I feel like I got my master's degree in online business. I had not heard of B School. I thought entrepreneurship was like tech startups. And, you have to code something. If you're not a developer, you're screwed. So when I started learning about online courses, it was fascinating. And this was a time where Facebook ads were just starting to become really a thing. And about 14 months into my job there, I had already started running ads for people on the side because this was just it was the thing I loved. Well, then I got fired. And that was super smart because my boss could see I was basically starting a job on the side and she needed a different kind of person in her company. So I looked around, I cried real bad. And then I looked around for about 5 minutes online for jobs. I think at this point I'm back in Argentina. And I was like, all right, we're going to make a go of this. And I just start looking for more clients that one retainer client I had at the time lasted 1 month. So I had to go at it fast. But I actually ended up launching my Facebook ads course fairly quickly for like a quote unquote new entrepreneur. And then I just went back and forth between selling courses, running ads, selling courses, running ads. And at this point, I no longer run ads for anyone except for kind of my friends. I just can't get away from it, Monica. I love the ads manager.
Well, okay. You taught me Facebook ads, which
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, you've made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yes, thank you. Okay. What year was it when you got fired, essentially?
May 2014.
Okay. So when did you put out the Facebook ads course for the first time?
September 2014.
Okay. So like pretty quick after.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Cause I bought it. I'm pretty positive I bought it in like, it was 2016, summer of 2016. And I feel like I paid $197 or $297.
Monica, I want to look it up.
Please do.
But no, you know what? You probably got it in 2016. Yeah.
I was in Columbus when I got it. See, it's so weird. I have like a visual memory with things I've done related to Claire. It's a little creepy. So I was telling Claire, Claire's like the beginning drug to my entrepreneurship almost. So I didn't even know how bad is this? I didn't really know what podcasts were. I mean, I've heard the term, I got the gist, but I never listened to podcasts until I really started like really wanting to quit my corporate job. And you were one of the first podcasts that I found. Of course, I found like the typical Amy Porterfield podcast and all that, but I binged yours on a road trip. I live in Buffalo. I was going to Pittsburgh. So it's like 3.5-hour drive. I was by myself because I was going to like my first mom conference, and I binged your episodes and I loved them. And I said, I'm going to be on this girl's podcast because she's amazing. But of course you have to like have made money to do that. So like, I knew I had a road ahead of me, but that was like my intro into following you. And I remember buying the Facebook ads course and not telling my husband, because I was nowhere near ready to run Facebook ads. What was I going to run Facebook ads to? But it was like, I just knew that I would need it. And it was in 2017 that I went to a mastermind. And so I was away for 3 days and I said, I am going to learn Facebook ads. I'm going to take Claire's course. I dedicated my 3 days to it. And at the end of that, I had launched my first ads, and now I'm like an addict, so you taught me Facebook ads. So it was very fascinating.
I love to hear it. You were some of like, just reading your posts about the success of your ads were so great, because the problem with ads, I mean, this is anything that you teach, right? Is what percent of your students are really, really going to be successful? Well, for a lot of courses, it has to do with like the work that they put in. With Facebook, oh my gosh, I'm holding back on the expletives so bad, because every time I think about this stuff, it just makes me want to curse. But yeah, like there's so much that you and I and all my students have zero control over.
Right.
So it just kind of makes those wins extra sweet. Like, not only does Monica have like great offerings, but the Zuckerberg gods actually smile upon her and her ad account, and, she's making money. So that's what I was happy about.
Well, and at the time too, I remember, like pixel issues I'd run into. I had nowhere else to ask questions. I was always asking questions in your group, and I always got responses, and you were thorough. And, you don't find that in every course, as, we both know. And I paid you once, like $197, that's pretty incredible. And I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you. Okay.
That's not the price anymore. Just
yeah,
FYI.
No, it's not. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because ads are complicated. And, my audience knows that I used to teach the Pinterest ads for 4 years, and, teaching ads to me just became a lot. And I have podcast episodes about why I pivoted and all that. But, it was like constantly, I'm sure you feel this way teaching it. It was constantly being at the mercy of something I had no control over. And on top of that, I'm also trying to get people results. And it became like a pressure cooker that I just wanted out of, to be honest with you. Have you felt that way with teaching it?
Absolutely. And there are things that I have done to feel less of that. One is I've had to just like work on being detached from other people's outcomes. It is hard. And also getting really clear in my marketing. And I think I've done this in like my overall brand, also on the sales page of all my stuff, is like, here's who this will work for, who this will likely work for. And it's not a silver bullet. Facebook ads are, I always say Facebook ads are like Viagra. They will give you a boost, but they will not make you good in bed. So if your business if your business is not good in bed yet, like you can't convert because you haven't gotten there yet. And guess what? I was there too. I was the one on webinars, not selling anything. I was the one sending out emails that didn't get opened or didn't get clicks. It's once you like nail down how to sell, that ads will give you that boost, So get good in bed, people, and then turn on the ads.
And so this was my major issue with Pinterest ads. Students would come without a converting funnel. And it was the most painful thing ever. And it was so out of the scope. I couldn't teach you how to have a converting offer in a course that was meant for Pinterest ads. And we tried so many times to fill this gap. We even launched a whole new product about it. But it got to the point where I just burned out on Pinterest in general. I mean, really, because now what we teach is to create this converting funnel, because it was so aggravating watching people put money down the drain. And it was like that, like, it wasn't my job to really review their funnel, but almost every ad review turned into telling them, oh, okay, it's not the ads. Like, we got it. It was like a funnel review every time because, without a converting, please, that is the biggest PSA that we could give. Please do not run ads without a converting offer that you've proven. Please.
Okay. And can I piggyback on that?
Yes.
I don't know what you do with your students, but I have a new soapbox that I'm on.
Oh, I want to hear.
7 days a week, 24 hours a day, which is do not build a funnel without testing the top of it with ads.
Interesting. Okay. Tell me more.
Let me tell you. So I have this evergreen funnel. All right. It's a webinar funnel. It converts. It's beautiful. It changed my life. Right. I get 5 to 10 signups for that funnel or some opt-in on my site a day. Right. I have Google traffic. That's not a ton. Right. But from that, I was making 4 to 8 sales a month from organic traffic. Guess who spent more than $20,000, probably closer to $30,000, trying to make that funnel profitable with ads? This girl, because I was like fiddling with everything. Monica, I was improving and paying copywriters to improve the sales page, improve the emails. I don't even think I actually touched the webinar itself, but what I kept seeing was that I could not get the cost per lead down on the actual sign up for the webinar. So the math just didn't work out. Even if I had like a 1% conversion rate, my cost per lead was so high that I wasn't going to make very much money on these ads. I did get it to break even. The price of the course had gone up and up, like to make that happen. Also, we had a pandemic and people started like, I need ads. But what I never tested was changing the name of that webinar. The 5 ad formula to sell online courses on autopilot, snooze-erific. Okay. People wouldn't click. I know how to run ads and I couldn't get my cost per lead down. It's because of the offer. All right. So about $30,000 in all those tests to maybe at the end break even with like people buying later in launches or things like that. Last week, I built a quiz in a day. In another hour, I had ads running to it. $150 I spent to learn that this is also not the top of the funnel. I didn't build any emails. The responses to the quizzes were like super basic. Okay. $150 and about 3 hours. I realized this is not the thing. So the things that work for organic traffic do not always work for ads. And that's why my clients, they test the top of their funnel before they build out anything else with ads.
Okay. I like that. No, that is a very, very strong point. And I've never thought of it like that before, but I always appreciate when someone comes in and is able to give me a different way of looking at it. And I understand what you're saying. I do. And Well, I was going to say it's like how people find you organically too, I think does matter as well. Like I have a very strong, warm audience, and I know, as I've seen it many times, what my audience responds to is not the same thing as cold ads for me. So like I do know that. And I guess it's like some qualification of like, what do you consider like warm? Like someone on my email list who's engaged with me is warmer than someone who might have found me on Google,
Mhm.
likely, so
No, you're absolutely right. The funnel, it's not as if the ad traffic and the organic traffic converts at the same rate. Not at all.
right.
Like 2 to 3% on organic.
Hmm.
And, probably people recommend me in Facebook groups. There is a lot of Google traffic, which is not high quality, so certainly there are different conversion rates, but I know that I don't want to be blogging constantly. I
Me
don't want
neither.
to be on that content creation hamster wheel. I love my podcast, but even recording 2 episodes a month sometimes makes my schedule a little unbearable. So I want my business, my leads to at least break even from ads so that I don't really have to worry about that. And I make the money off of the higher ticket thing.
Okay. So you mentioned already that you don't run ads anymore for people.
Correct.
Aside, like you'll help friends, but you're in the teaching game at this point.
Yeah, I'm in the teaching game in sort of like a little bit of the done with you, but I myself am less hands-on because now I have coaches who are doing that. I have 2 coaches, one who is an ads coach and one who is a copy coach, because that's also what I'm sure you know about funnels is like the conversions
Sure do.
really rest on super incredible copy. And it's just a hard thing to master.
Yes, it is. Oh, and outsourcing something like that. This was a recent topic that we had. We were talking about what the next role should be that we hire for and our needs. And one of the most prevailing needs we have is conversion focused copy. And it's painful. It takes a toll on a small team because it just feels like it's very draining, especially if it's not the thing that lights you up, And it's hard to find
Absolutely.
someone that's affordable at all levels, that's the thing that lights them up. I mean, conversion copywriters are expensive, as they should be, because they make you a lot of money.
Yes. Can I tell you how I solved that problem?
Oh, please.
People are like, how are you getting like a conversion copywriter on your team for, well, I won't say how much because it's not my
Yeah.
business to share what she makes, but it's not the price of a sales page. I'll tell you that. She's in a little bit of a hybrid role where she's a coach. So she's not spending all of her time with me writing. She gets to flex her coaching muscles and she's fantastic at that. And it was just kind of like part of the job description. So, you're going to be like halftime coaching and halftime writing. Writing are like marketing assets.
Okay.
So, yeah. I feel like the first month that she was with us, she wrote maybe 6 emails to drive applications for our program. And oh my God, the ROI on that investment in her was insane. So yeah.
Well, it gives me hope.
Yeah, no, I just like, it is hard. In fact, that was like almost the role that I was hired for in my last job, except I had no experience with conversion copywriting. And I think that was just one of the areas where I didn't live up to it. Maybe another reason why I was let go. But
So you mentioned that you love the ads manager. I know we say that a little bit tongue in cheek, probably, because we can also hate the ads manager depending on the day.
well, I hate when I have to update all my courses, but if I'm just in there, I can find things. I love it, Monica. I was just telling my husband, how can I get more involved in my clients' ad managers? And he was like, I think that might be a terrible idea. I don't know.
Well, okay. So, but what was your driving decision to stop having clients if you love it so much?
The money.
The money. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite client who I worked with for years, even that, like, I would say she was probably taking up about a third of my headspace, not even like on the actual work, but thinking, checking, communicating, and that was not a third of my revenue by far. And I have no interest in building an agency. So in order to scale that kind of work, it's agency direction. I kind of didn't want to just increase my prices because I could have. I was at like 2,500 a month and I could have gone to 3,000, maybe even 4,000. But at that level, people are expecting images, copy. I was making $2,500 a month to not write any copy. I was basically the strategy and the person clicking around in the ads manager and choosing the audiences, which is so much fun.
Yeah, audiences are fun. That's one thing I definitely like.
Yeah. It's so funny. There's like 1% of us that feel this way.
Really? It's so fun when you uncover a new one. It's like, oh, you can target this.
I know. It is really, it's fun to see my clients when they discover they're like inner ad nerd, when all they wanted was just more leads, and then they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could see. Look at that data. Ooh. 1 in 100.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's kind of what makes me a good student for a lot of these courses, because I like data and I'm very inquisitive and I do the work. When I want something to happen, I do the work. And a lot of people show up to courses and don't want to do the work. And I'm actually really on board with the fact that, like, you can't have a junk course and then blame the people who join it. Like, that's not fair. I wholeheartedly do not believe I have a junk course whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Like, I poured my heart and soul into it. I want to see people succeed. If someone's unwilling to show up, that is on them. If they don't want to do the work and open it up, and I can't we're all adults. We have to also have, our autonomy about us. And so there's like that. I'm like on board with the fact that we're equally responsible. So when I show up for my part, you have to show up for your part, Mm-hmm. Do you have a different opinion? I mean, I'm cool if you do.
No, not at all. I think when I think about the courses that I have not, there are courses that I have bought, not opened, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking of one in particular. It was not a junk course. It was actually on writing Facebook ad copy, because I knew that, remember me trying to get this cost per lead down? Oh my gosh. Writing copy is not my strong suit. So I couldn't get through 20 minutes of the first video. It was a guy talking. It was just him talking, and the video was about an hour and 20 minutes. So that's my learning style, right? That's about, like, I took 10x emails from copy hackers.
Mm-hmm.
It's video, short videos, but also you can just read the entire script. It was wonderful. That course with the ad copy maybe is fantastic, but I didn't, investigate. I didn't look into whether or not it was going to match with my learning style. I probably could have requested a refund. I didn't even read the terms. It wasn't too expensive. So sometimes I get it. My course is not all video, and some people really hate that. So I try to make it super clear on the sales page, but not, people don't always read. But one thing that, I'll say this last thing, one thing that my mindset coach has taught me is that sometimes people need to invest in something to learn that that's the wrong investment.
I can understand that. I can relate. Okay. So the other like hybrid option too is me and you are in a mutual program that I have not implemented a single thing, and we have paid tens of thousands of dollars to be in this program. I have no regrets whatsoever, because it's almost like the up leveling of the people that you meet. And I've always been a firm believer, even in my worst investments. And I've only asked for a refund in like 7-8 years once. And I probably should have asked for a refund many more times than that. However, even in bad situations where it was like the person who took the money, I don't even know how they slept at night, like those kind of situations, the people I met down the road always paid off almost 100% of the time, the relationships that I formed. And so like there's other things to get out of joining. It's almost like essentially what in corporate, what we call buying ourselves into the room. That's a lot of what online business is.
Yes, it is. And that feels tricky. I have given that advice when I used to run this program about like building an ad management business.
I remember that program.
Yeah. And I remember doing a video about that. And I had learned that from other people. And then I saw it happen. And I had a lot of feelings about people who had just invested a significant amount with me and telling them, buy yourself into these other rooms. But especially ads managers, especially people, if you are in, I realize that most of your audience are more like, course creators and things like that. And course creators, I love you, come learn from me. But B2B service providers, buy those courses. If they have a group, be active in the group, be ridiculously useful, which is my motto, and you're going to get clients.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it is a tricky thing too, because, when I started, and when many people start, most of us are not buying ourselves into $10,000 rooms. And there's a whole separate conversation to be had about that too. There's a part of me that sometimes feels like I'm accepting of things because of the culture in corporate that I grew up in, the things I was forced to accept in my 20s that I'm just still unraveling about really inappropriate things that happened with men, with the power that they had, that I'm not even ready to publicly talk about. I don't know if I ever will be. Probably should go to therapy for it. And I think I actually kind of blocked it out until recently, where I've kind of just been unraveling a bunch of stuff in general that has happened in life. And buying yourself into a room can be a symptom of like the culture they've created that kind of seeped in. One of the saddest things for me with online business was when I left corporate, I thought I was escaping this world that, was very skewed towards a certain type of person, definitely not welcoming of working moms, which is where redefining mom was born out of. And a lot of it followed me into the online business world. Like the way people play the business game didn't really change all that much. And I think that was very disheartening for me. I wanted it to be different, and I still want it to be different. And like what that looks like, I don't know. I think I'm still working on that, I guess.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that. A lot of the rooms that like my students would buy their way into were led by white dudes.
Yep.
And I learned from Rachel Rogers, who I know you're also a fan of, like these are not the only rooms. And that changed a lot for me, because I was looking towards these white male leaders, mentors. And it was like, but why? There are other rooms, and those rooms, now that I've gone into them, have been like incredible and more supportive, more fruitful in a way. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I know that wasn't
something
where
really
we thought we'd go.
Yeah, something weird that happened to me was I was so burned out with working with men in corporate. I had such bad experiences that I intentionally avoided them in my business. Then I entered this period where I felt like I was intimidated by men. And I said this to a peer mastermind, and I could see all their eyes on Zoom, and they're like, Monica's intimidated by men because I'm so loud and opinionated. And if you really know me, like I don't hold back typically, in my personal life, I don't hold back how I feel. And they're like, you are intimidated by men? And I'm like, yeah, it's like a real issue. So then I thought I had to hire a male coach to like prove to myself. And it was actually a real bad mind game that was being played. But I will say the one thing I took away from that is there's no need for me to be intimidated by men. It reaffirmed though to me that like, I don't need to play in their same rooms or sit at their same table, which is why me and you are in like Rachel's membership. And I try very hard to be in more diverse, buy my way into rooms that are more diverse, which I historically have just not been exposed to, especially not in the tech world, in corporate. And so that is encouraging. That's a good spin on like how I was discouraged by this environment for a while, but now the tides are turning, and that is very encouraging now.
Yeah.
We just got to keep buying into the right rooms and supporting the right people.
Yeah. Keep taking my money, Rachel.
Yes.
Let's get it on, like ACH, whatever you want to call it.
And I'll link in the podcast notes to Rachel Rogers' membership. She has a book too, and we'll link to that. We Should All Be Millionaires, because we should. And she's amazing. I have nothing but good things to say about her. And she's taught me a lot too. So, okay. The two things I want to cover. We haven't said it yet, but you have a podcast called the Get Paid Podcast. Now I've mentioned that I binged your podcast, but here's the thing. The Get Paid Podcast is where you ask tough questions on entrepreneurs. You want to know the nitty gritty, the stuff that nobody talks about in their marketing material. Like, are your launches really profitable? Are you lying to us? And you go there. But I mean, that is a disconnect. I know you've struggled with the disconnect between the content in your podcast to the fact that you teach Facebook ads. So you paused it, I know, for about a year-ish, maybe 2, 3. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, 3 years. I missed you. And then
you discovered it a little later, so you probably didn't realize how long it was on hiatus.
Yeah, maybe. And I think I actually have re-listened to episodes. So you paused it. Why'd you bring it back?
Well, in February 2018, I was in a peer mastermind like meetup, the first one I'd really done in New York City. And in my hot seat, it became clear to me, somebody who I really respect said, I don't really feel like you have a brand. And she was right. Like I was just kind of hiding behind these tutorials, these like Facebook how-tos. The podcast stopped when I had my first in 2016. And then I just felt like it didn't really make me money. I had stopped blogging, which is what gave me a lot of SEO juice, yada, yada. It just felt like this isn't the thing because I didn't talk about Facebook ads on it. I never talked about me on the show. So a friend of mine later said, she said two things that were really important. She said, one, you can pay people to help you with branding, right? And I forget, like 2 years later, I think right when you and I met in person, my new site went live.
It did the week that we were together.
Exactly. Having spent a lot of money on branding, it was awesome. But like 1 year later after that mastermind, because it took me a year to plan it and think about it, I brought the podcast back because that was the most me that I had ever been in business. And this is what my friend said to me. She's the reason, Kira Hug, she's the reason why the podcast came back. And what I just decided was that I could no longer worry about having the right people on the show or like I just remember interviewing one of my guests and really wanting to know how she was having a sex life while being a single mom traveling around Asia. And I'm thinking, what if my listeners don't want this? What if they're like, we just want the business talk. We just want the business talk. And then I was like, I can't run this podcast if I can't have the conversations that I want. It doesn't make any sense. So from that day forward, I was just like, I'm going to ask some people about money. I'm not going to ask everyone about money. I'm going to do what I want and just have the conversations I want. And I think the show kind of really gained a lot of momentum once I started doing that.
I like that. And the other thing is too, your episodes go long. And I'm sure, have you gotten a lot of, do people criticize that?
Just my husband.
Oh, okay, good. Because I like it. I feel like you give such good context and they're great conversations. And if you guys didn't know this, you can always speed us up too. Like I speed up podcasts, so like if you just did a great episode with Jordan Gill, 2 hours, but I sped you guys up. I listened, but I sped you guys up.
I mean, you didn't listen to it in one sitting, did you?
It took about 2 of my walks to get through it.
That's the thing. Like I am much more inclined to go out on a walk or actually do the dishes without grumbling if I have great stuff to listen to.
Yeah.
And for me, these like 25-minute, just like little highlights, 3 tips to XYZ, it just doesn't do it for me. So again, I created the show that I would want to listen to.
And that's why you're motivated to show up for it. I mean, that makes perfect sense. So now you're honoring yourself. And okay, so it was a mindset thing where you felt like you're always kind of on guard about you wanted to please everyone almost.
Yeah, that's a story of my life right there, Monica. Always wanting to please people. And so the other thing that I changed in 2019 is I started talking more about my work. I started promoting my own evergreen webinar funnel instead of like Acuity, which was my lovely sponsor for a while. But, that has a top once they pay you that one time, that the way we had it set up, that has a top. So it was really funny because the month I brought back the podcast, I was like dealing with infertility. It was one of the worst months ever. I could barely get out of bed, except I got out of bed for these interviews. And we launched the podcast with these ads to my funnels. And I just got this influx of sales. It was as if my listeners who actually kept the podcast in their phones for 3 years, which was shocking. I was
one of them. No, I mean, I can see why.
It was as if they were like, oh, I didn't know Claire knew about ads. Oh, okay. Here, take my money. I didn't know that you did that. Oh, now that I know, here you go. Because it was a flood of sales.
Let me thank you for this because I remember when your podcast came back because you were still in my phone. And I listened to the episode where you talked about, I'm not having sponsors. I'm sponsoring. My program is sponsoring this. And when I set up this podcast, I knew immediately I would not take sponsors. And I knew that the calls to action were going to be about our business, our funnels. And that's because of watching you burn out, take your break, and then come back and state that. And that is why I structured this the way I did. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Do you ever run ads to episodes?
I have one running right now.
Very
I have like
good.
this whole waterfall like attempt going on where for years, my unique content was being put out in two ways. Behind a paid firewall. I would say like 85% of my effort was behind the paid firewall of my courses. And I had given up blogging. So then the other effort went into my email list. Now, like for years, that was all I could, I just didn't have the bandwidth to do anything else. And my courses were making money. So this is where my attention went. So emails, though, we all know, like you're lucky if you get a 25% open rate, and that's probably on a resend. And it was like one day it dawned on me, I'm like, so I'm writing these amazing emails, which it resonate with people. We get great responses, built really a loyal following, but it wasn't going anywhere besides I was gated. It was gated. And it was like, what? And so I wanted to launch a podcast for a very long time, but bandwidth, it was always an issue. And then, this year was like the year when we pivoted away from Pinterest ads that I was like, I have to get back, without a firewall. And so now that this is like the primary mode of me putting out free content, I don't know, it took me a while for it to dawn on me that, why am I not running really cheap ads to this content and then retargeting that audience with the offer? Because it will be cheaper. My cost per lead will be cheaper, which has proven to be true so far, but in very micro kind of tests. I tasked my operations manager with doing new like graphics for the different podcast episodes and audiograms and stuff. So we're about to make this like a much bigger like thing. Yeah. But now even I think about when I go to record a solo show, I'm even thinking like, well, what's a good topic that we can run ads to?
I have 2 words for you.
Okay.
Carousel ads.
Okay.
Choose your own adventure. If you want, they could all be solo episodes. If you like, I've done it with guests.
Okay.
So I picked like 6 episodes, and I mean, the art that I use in the ad, not the art that we have like on the site or anything like that. And it's just kind of a very clickbaity headline. The one that I will never forget, because this is the one that won, was Jerisha Hawk. In her episode, she talked about having a $60K month from her side hustle. So the carousel ad, Facebook will show different cards in the carousel to test out to see which ones were getting the most clicks. And now, or at least until I stop running that particular ad, because those episodes are so old now, Jerisha's was the one that people clicked on the most. And so that was like the cheapest. And it's a great episode. I'm great in it. Like I actually talk about my work. And so we saw a lot of sales coming off of those ads.
I love it. Okay. Then I will put that in my arsenal. This is why I like talking to ads experts, because when you stop teaching it too, even though I taught Pinterest and not Facebook, a lot of the data I was seeing, I don't see now. And that's like, I did realize I realize it now. What I didn't realize when I shut down the course was how much data I actually had that informed my decisions, even in my own business. And I'm like, well, dang, now I'm just kind of like left out in the pasture, just trying to like figure out what works now, So thank you. I will definitely try that. That's a good tip. Okay. I have then one other question for you, which is when the pandemic hit and everyone was like, oh, so we've never run online businesses during a pandemic before. What's going to happen? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this coincides with, I'm almost positive it was a podcast episode you did where you talked about how your sales pretty much shut off that March 2020. It was like you were getting those, trickle in of your organic sales. And they were adding up to a decent baseline because your course was $14.97, I think. Okay. So 8 sales times $14.97, that's not a bad baseline. And then suddenly the world shuts down and it shuts off. And you were pregnant, very pregnant, right?
At the time, I was 6 months pregnant.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're like, imminent maternity leave coming up.
Right.
Now we got a pandemic going on. And you made, in my opinion, a pretty genius pivot, which was into workshops.
Yes. So it was 3 weeks of no sales, right? And it started at the very beginning of March. So we didn't even go into lockdown, until that 14th, 17th, something like that, right? We're talking about March 4th was like my last sale and then nothing. And I just didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I had at the time a list of, I don't know, 6,000 people. And I had this course, which at the time was, $1,500. Great course, lots of support. But like most people on my list were never going to buy that. But Facebook ads, especially, suddenly costs with ads dropped. So it was just a really great time to be running ads, but not a great time to be selling a $1,500 product with all the uncertainty. So I put together a $97 workshop. I capped it at 30 people and I sold it out in about 45 minutes with one email to my list. Oh, one email was like hey, are you interested in this? And then the next email sold it out.
Okay. That's cool.
It was a 3-day workshop. And then I sold 5 off the back end of that. Like, it's the upsell. 5 people took me up on the offer to join my course. And then I did it again. And it might have taken like 2 hours for the next one. And it was 40 spots instead of 30. So yeah, in the course of about 3 weeks, I think I made $15,000 just from workshop sales and upsells. And the beauty of it, which I didn't know this was going to happen, is that suddenly the sales started rushing in from my funnel again. So that was just like a nice resolution to that. But yeah, I then launched a course called Workshop Magic about how to do this. It's a ton of email templates so that you don't have to write all of the emails, because there aren't a ton of emails to sell it, because it's really for somebody who has an existing audience. Like, Monica, if you did this, you'd probably make $100,000 just off of the ticket sales.
We do workshops and we do pretty well with them.
Okay, yeah. Great. So, and then I just added, like, when I actually went from having these self-study courses to like a hybrid coaching and training program, I put that in. So now this is how we get people to sort of validate an offer before they build a funnel around it. And some of my students are just using it like to replace their launches, because they're making the same amount of money off of
for a lot less work.
And now that's not to say that, like I have one client who did a launch in January, and I think she was a little bit disappointed with the results. I think she brought in 50K, but considering her audience and the work involved, right? And then she did a $97 workshop plus an upsell into her $1,000 course and got the exact same results. So doesn't mean she's going to stop launching, because I think, she hopes these launches will be in the 6-figure mark, things like that. But it's a great way to test a low price offer and get paid to pitch your services, or, your bigger offer, your signature program. I just feel like the engagement, the act of like getting to experience somebody live, the upsell conversion rates are just so much better than like a live webinar that you send a gazillion emails about to fill to try to get people to show up. And then there's no real
So we're doing a lot right now. And so I've always wanted to do a high ticket, but I pivoted the whole suite of products. And the first 2 rungs of there's 3 products total, which will end with the high ticket. The first 2 products, it's been since last October of us getting it all up, and we're at a good place right now with it. So I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm like kind of burned out from all the content I just had to come up with in the last 9 months. And so I took a calmer approach for once. And I said, okay, well, what's going to be like the first essentially part of the framework of what my high ticket's going to be? And I made it a workshop. So it's the next logical step for current students. And there's other people on my list who are just going to simply be interested in it too. So we made it a workshop, opened 100 seats, sold them out, and now I'm getting paid to create the first part of the framework, and you'll never get it that cheap again because it's going to be in a high ticket. So it's kind of like a win-win. And like you said, people in the workshop, we're doing a 3-day pop-up group. So my people are always engaged when I give them FaceTime. And so I have no doubt it's going to lead to, people being interested in the high ticket. We also decided for the middle rung of our ladder, it's called the Empowered Business Lab, which is like the self-study. There is some support in the group. It'll be nothing like there's not like dedicated coaches and stuff like you would get in high ticket. we decided this August, which when this airs, it will have already happened. So we'll see how it turns out. You guys are here. It's kind of like going to be backwards me talking about it, but I'm curious what you're going to think about this because it's kind of been a little bit of like all the rage lately. We're going to do what people would coin as a paid challenge, but we are not calling it a challenge. I don't like the word challenge. I think it's like a stopper word. It's like it indicates it's going to be hard. We don't want it to be hard. We want it to be fun. And so we're calling it an experience, but it's not the cost of a workshop. We're going to do early bird at $19 for a week and a half. And then next week and a half, we'll just go up another $10. There'll be an order bump for lifetime access. This even might change, but right now, this is the plan. I really feel like when people pay, they're more likely to show up and be engaged. And so your back end conversions are higher. And I'm really curious how it will play out compared to like this workshop model. Because it's not quite the same, but it is similar,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be interesting. I don't know if you have any thoughts on like that, like being lower price, or if you've seen it work for any of your clients or anything like that.
So I have one client who has been doing pay challenges now for a couple of years. And the first one she did was $9, I think. And she had this insane conversion rate into her membership.
Okay.
I want to say she spent in total $5,000 on her ads.
That's not bad.
No. She made money off of the paid challenge. There was an order bump, blah, blah, blah. This time she had much bigger goals. So we did the numbers. We calculated a much lower conversion rate, much lower. The paid challenge was $19, I think. And we helped her spend $50,000.
Wow.
On ads. Yeah. And she made money, but she didn't have the like percentage ROI that she did the first time. But it was kind of like that getting paid to grow your list, which is sort of my whole thing. Because then she's going to open up her like certification in a couple of months. And now she has all these leads. I think she got 1,600 people into the paid challenge.
Wow.
And
okay.
yeah,
well, it's 50,000 in ad spend. So
yeah, 50,000 in ad spend. And I think like cash in hand revenue was only 85,000, but then there's the recurring because it's a membership. So it's like, okay, I know she was hoping for a higher like return on investment immediately. But if you sort of look at it from the, like, this is just growing the list before the certification in like a fun way, because her challenge is so fun. Yeah, it's great. So just like, I think all I'll say, as I'm sure you know, is like, what is the CPA that you're going to go for? And is it more important for you to get numbers in or to have a low CPA? CPA is cost per acquisition. Yeah. So if you have to spend $25 to get the $19 sale, how does that work for you as you scale?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Well, we've always had profitable launches. I've always been conservative with my ad spend. So like we had our first 6-figure launch in April, which prior to this airing, I will have actually finally recorded the podcast about it, which I have put off forever. It actually was probably one of the hardest mindset launches we had. Funny how that works, but we crossed the 6-figure mark. We spent 17 grand in ads. So I am not that person ever that's like, I have great launches, but I spend I'm not that person. Like we are profitable because I'm not doing this if I'm not profitable. I'm very open about that. Like, I'm either making money for my family and supporting my employees or we're not doing it. Like, so, it is going to be interesting. It gave me something to mull on how much I want to put up for Facebook ads this time and what that means, because we're not going to get as many people. We'd have to assume we're not going to get as many. We had 3,500 people in the challenge in April. So I'd have to I have all the numbers in the spreadsheet, but we had 3,500 people in, and I want to say we had like a 2.5% conversion rate, which is not bad, but we don't know what the benchmark we should be going for when it's paid. That's the wild card. That is the wild card because we've never done it before, And so it's almost like when we're trying to set our goals the other day for how many people do we want to pay for the experience? But it's like, well, what are we predicting? A 15% conversion rate? Wouldn't we all love that? But it's not going to happen.
She had a 9% conversion rate.
Which is that we can both agree that is good,
Yeah.
So, I definitely anticipate the conversion rate being higher than it was for the free version of the challenge. And we are revamping the content and stuff. But for a long time, I get stuck in my own head and I'm resistant to change. And I'm like, I get burned out and it's like, I don't want to do a new way of launching. We're just going to do it the way we've done it. But you know what? I don't know what got into me. And I was just like, I'm sick of doing the same old thing. I want different results and I want to be the person that tests. And so, we're running the workshop and this experience like back to back, which is a little nutty. I don't know why I decided to do that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
This is kind of like a question I would ask on my show, but do you know, and most business owners do not know this. So I'm not trying to like throw you, do you know what the ROI was on that 17K specifically, like of the people who came in from those ads, what their conversion rate was? Was it also 2.5%?
Okay. So here's the hard part with marrying that up. This is what I do know. My opt-in always has a tripwire behind it. So we were profitable, slightly profitable with the tripwire. We track all of that, even if it doesn't report into Ads Manager, because I have a whole separate funnel that runs for Facebook.
That's
ads.
What I like to hear.
Yes. So I'm pretty good at knowing this, but the hardest part is, didn't I talk about VLOOKUPs when I was on your show? And you're like, VLOOKUPs.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. So we did do, and I have to go and look because we take the form that they come in from the Facebook ad to the people who bought, but it always throws us off because those people who are on your list 3 to 4 times with 3 to 4 email addresses. So it's not perfect. Mm-hmm. But I want to say out of those leads, there was like, for some reason, the number 1,191 leads is sticking out to me. I don't know why, because I was looking at the launch spreadsheet not too long ago. That's what we got through Facebook ads. And so, but the exact number of the buyers that came through that funnel is a little murky because of this whole, and, people often have like my Thinkific school has been around since 2016. So I have people on my Thinkific school have like 9 accounts, and it's just so hard to marry that up and it's painful. But yeah, so that's something I have to dig a little further in because that can be lookup in and all that stuff. But
yeah, it's never perfect. I think the only reason I bring that up is just sort of to bring awareness to the whole, like, once again, that might be your like 2.5% might be an average of like a higher conversion rate from your already like your existing warm audience or like semi-warm against slightly lower with like, stone cold. But I love that you have separate funnels. I love that you're making the money back on the tripwire. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's like my students that do want to move because I have positioned ads. It is not the main deliverable of what I teach now. I'm good at it. So we have it as a bonus. It's an option for them to feed their funnel, but like it is not a core deliverable of my program. One of the main things I am constantly repeating is you are building the funnel twice and you're just duplicating everything. Make it part of your process. Your life is just so much better when you do that.
Let's get tattoos that say that. Duplicate the funnel.
Probably learned it from you, Claire. I mean, I don't remember exactly where it came from, but like, let's be real. I clearly have been following you closely for a while, so it likely came from you.
It's all good. It's funny. Like you think it's something everyone's doing and you're just like, oh, no, is that new? It's just duplicate. I should make a video. Gotta make a video.
I wonder if like that would be a good lead in for you for your stuff.
Oh, well, here's the thing. I won't make the video until I actually test it with ads.
and
that's my new policy.
I can guarantee you my students will start hearing. So Claire said, and I think because I really do. I think that's a very smart idea. Now, at this point, my program is for lower priced digital products. So I'm not dealing with students right now that are launching $1,400 products and it's a little bit different, but it's still a good point. Okay. Well, I always love talking to you. So yeah, thank you for coming on the show. I know people are going to love you as much as I love you. So what is the best way to find you and connect?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. I mean, come listen to my podcast since you're already in your podcast app, just like search Get Paid Claire. That's going to be the easiest way to find it in your favorite app. And then if you are like, well, I want to learn how to test the top of my funnel before I actually build it, just head over to clairepels.com and you're going to see a couple different options to work with us. The one I recommend for Monica's students, if you've worked with Monica already, come and join us inside the Lead Lab. That's our like coaching plus training program, and where I may or may not want to get on the back end of your ads manager, at least on our calls.
Yes. Yeah. If you, I would agree. Of students that work with me, you'll definitely love Claire. I mean, and for Facebook ads, absolutely. Like without you, I don't know where I'd be. Probably still trying to blog and get organic traffic. Thank God that's not the case anymore.
And if you do come after listening to this podcast, please let me know so I can give Monica some affiliate money. I mean, she didn't ask, but like, I'm going to have to send something.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. This was really fun.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Empowered Business Podcast. If you want to get started creating your own digital products and don't know where to start, we have a brand new training that can help. It's called Passion to Profit: How to Discover Your Unique $1 Million Digital Product Formula. Head on over to empoweredbusiness.co/profit to join the training for free. Plus, we've added on a private podcast feed to make consuming the content even easier. You can choose to consume it via video or a private podcast feed. I can't wait to see you back here next week.